making our macrame bracelet. We're going to make a macrame bracelet using 2 knots. We're going to use the square knot here, which is a really pretty decorative macrame knot, and we're going to use a gathering knot to make it adjustable so we can change the width of our bracelet. So what you will need is, you will need 2 lengths of twine. Go for something which doesn't have any stretch to it. So actually a hessian or a jute twine that you'd have maybe in your garden shed or something, that's really nice to use. This is just a postage twine. Got this from the post office. Waxed twine is really lovely as well. I've got this waxed string that I'm going to be using some of today. You'll also need a pair of scissors. And if after this you're wanting to have a go at making one with the little beads in, you will need some beads too. Lovely beads. So let's begin with our 2 measures of twine. So here I have my 2 measures of thread. This is my 30cm one, and I've got a much longer one. This is 6 foot or 180 centimeters of thread. Now, here are my 2 ends of the thread together, which allows me to find the central point. This central point, I'm going to tie a knot in it. There we go. There's just a plain normal knot. I'm going to slip one end of my 30cm piece into it. And there's my first knot. From here, I'm going to make my square knots down this piece of twine, and that is going to be my bracelet. So starting off with the left piece, we make an L. So that is over my 30cm piece. My right hand piece of thread is going to go over at this point. It's going to go under my 30cm. And then the end is going to come up through here. So as I pull these, that gives me my first half of the square knot. I then need to do the same thing but from the opposite direction. So I'm going to make a backwards L with my right hand piece. My left hand piece goes over the top here, under, and then it's going to come up through there. That is one square knot. So we'll continue going down here. Let's give you a bit of a close-up. So that is one square knot. Let's do many more of those. Here's my left hand L. My right hand thread goes over, it goes under, and comes up through here. Half of a knot, and then from the other side, left, right goes over left, underneath here, and then up through. Right, I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to put us on fast forward for a bit, but I'm going to keep doing the same thing. So let's go on to fast forward. Okay, I've been knotting away here. And I'm nearly happy with the length of my bracelet. I like to have the square knots about 15-16 centimetres. That's a nice size for my wrist, but have a measure of your own wrist. You might have noticed on the sped up version that I was doing my knots in a little bit of a quicker way. Once you've got the hang of the knots and it's a little bit more muscle memory, you can sort of do it just in your hands and speed the knot up a little bit. It's just a case of getting into the hang of it. Now, I wanted to do a little bit of troubleshooting at this point before we do the next bit of the knots. If you are finding, so first, if you get to say this stage, you're coming back and you can't remember which side to do the L from. So, I have got here is a vertical stitch. If we call all of these vertical stitches, the last one that I've got is on the left hand side. Here's my vertical stitch. That tells me that the next knot I need to do is with the L coming from the left hand side. So it's the L going over to make the next stitch. So if you put your work down for a little bit, or if you just forget where you're up to, that's how you can tell what stitch to go on to next. So now my vertical is on the right hand side, so my next L would be using, well, it'd be a backwards L because it would be using my right hand piece of twine, like that. If you go wrong, and if you do sort of multiple lefts in a row or multiple rights in a row, you will get something that looks a little bit like this. So up to this point, I've been going left, right, etc. And then it gets to here, and I've gone off piste, and I've started doing right after right after right after right. So my work has started to spiral. If you get this, just simply undo your knots back as far as it takes for your work to stop spiraling, and then use that trick that I just showed you about working out which sort of side to start from, and start again. Don't throw your whole project away, just untie it until you can get back to the point where you're happy that your square knots are back doing what they're supposed to be doing. Anyway, I shall leave that. That's nearly back to where it should be. There we go. So I could now, my last vertical is on the right hand side. So to continue my pattern, I would be doing a right L under there, up through here. Oh, I've started singing a bit of the video. There we go. Our bracelet is back on track with its square knots. That's enough of that though. We are at this stage, and we are ready now to tie this bit off, and we're going to make this gathering knot, which allows our bracelet to change size. So we will, that was me dropping my scissors on the floor. Moment mal. We will snip off these two threads. Now if you want, I sometimes put a little dab of glue either side here, just to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. So this is my bracelet. Oh, fits like a glove. First, I want to protect these two ends, so I'm going to tie a little knot in each of these. There's knot one. And here we go, knot two. You could do this at the start if you wanted. You could do this before you started doing your square knots. It's much of a muchness. So there's my two knots. Now these two knots, I want to cross them over so that those two ends of bracelet are touching each other in opposite directions. I'm then going to get a spare piece of twine. I'm going to make a little loop in my twine, and I'm going to lay this next to them. So now I've got the end of my bracelet the end of my bracelet going in the other direction. Here's my loop of twine, and here is the end of it. I'm going to pick all of that up. I'm going to wrap this long end around and around those 4 strings. So the 4 strings comprise of the 2 ends of the bracelet and the loop of twine. Right, I'm happy with that amount of wraps. Here's the loop, here's the end. Put that through this loop. And here's the other end of my looping twine. So I've got the 2 ends and I'm pulling that, which is creating a gathered knot. So these 2 ends, not the 2 that have got our knots on, but these 2 ends that are our looping twine, they can be snipped now. And there we have it. A bracelet that we can change the size of. I'm terrible at doing this one-handed. There we go. There we go. So next, I'm going to show you how to do the same thing, but with some beads on it. So if you gather yourself some more twine, for this project you do want the really, really thin twine because you need to be able to loop the beads onto this. So grab yourself some twine, grab yourself some beads, and make sure the holes of your beads are big enough to allow them to slide onto that twine. See you in a moment. So, creating a macrame bracelet with beads interspersed on it. So for this, as I just said, you need the beads to be able to fit onto one of your pieces of twine, and you're going to start off the project in the same way as your last one. So here's a bit of a work in progress for me. So I started off, this is my 30 centimetres of twine that runs through the middle. I have done my knot and I've done my square knots until I want to start my beading. The other thing that I did at the start of this is I threaded all of the beads in the order that I want them to appear onto my 30 centimetres of twine. So these are all here, and then I've tied a knot on the other end so that they can't escape. I have had that happen. Very annoying. So they're all ready to be included in my project. I've finished a square knot. I've got a square knot here, and then all I do is I slide one bead up so it's sitting flush to that square knot, and then I can do a square knot with that bead in place. So there's my left hand L. Now it's only a square knot if you complete it and you do it in the other direction. So here's my right hand L. Right, this isn't in the way. I will get another bead involved. Let's slide up the next one, greeny one, and we'll do a left hand L. I really hope I'm getting all my lefts and my rights correct here, guys. Don't want to pull it too tight. And then a right hand L, thus completing another square knot. And then I would keep going. I would keep putting up the next bead, doing a left hand then a right hand to complete a square knot. Keep going until all of those beads have been incorporated, until they're all in the project. Then I would do the same number of square knots. So if I count the right hand verticals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So I've got 14 square knots to do when I've finished incorporating all of these beads, and that will give me a really nice symmetrical bracelet. And now I'll finish it off the same way as I finished off the last one, which I will show you again, because I think the gathering knot, I think the finishing off knot is sometimes the one that folk find a little bit tricky. So I will continue to do this. I will bring our video back in when I've completed all of my knots and when I'm ready to show you the gathering knot, which is our fastening. Okay, see you in a moment. Okie dokie, the beaded bracelet is finished. So I have done my square knots either side. I've got my nice beads in the centre. I've put a little bead on either end of the tying strings. So let's have another go at that gathering knot. So the two beaded ends, the beads are facing away from each other. So there's two. Here's my second piece of twine. I'm going to put a loop in it, collect that up as well. So here's the short end of my gathering thread. Here's the looped end of my gathering thread. The long end, I wrap around all of these I'm doing this fairly, not too tight. It needs to be able to move up and down the other pieces of thread, but you don't want it to be too loose. So there's 8 wraps. Then this end pokes through my loop. And I'm pulling that knot inside our wraps. There we go. That's worked out even nicer than the first one, in fact. So my beaded strands, gonna leave them well alone. My looping threads, I can carefully snip those off. The ends are nicely tucked away inside. And there is my finished macrame bracelet, ready to be put on with my other one. So now that I've got these side by side, the one that I just showed you there had a single square knot between each bead, so the beads are nicely close together. This green one has got 3 square knots between each bead. So have a bit of an experiment as well with what works for you. And as always, enjoy! I hope you've liked today's craft.